Okay, we're going to look at the last step in Learn Activity 12 here, which is step 2, where we're going to add this code to our Firebase project. So over in our project, we've got our main.dart file opened up here. We've broken it down into a number of widgets, and we're ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do to get Firebase up and running is we have to initialize our Firebase stuff at the top here. So we're going to add a couple imports that we need for Firebase here. Put those up at the top. And then we're going to add this code to our main method here. This will initialize Firebase and set it up. So right before we run our app, we're going to initialize these things. Now this might take a while, and so we're going to do this asynchronously. We put in this await method. In order to do that, we need to switch this main app to an async app, which returns what is called a future. You'll see more about that. So I'm just going to right click on this and say add async. So it'll say future void main async up at the top. So that'll set that up. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is replace the list with what is called a collection of documents. So Firestore here in the database, those database records are called each table or each set of things is called a collection, and then the records inside of it are called documents. So each document is associated with a separate item or a separate object or something like that. So here in our database, we're going to scroll down till we find our list item. We're going to comment that out and replace it with this documents, this collection. So this is our collection. We go to our Firebase Firestore instance and we get a collection. We're going to name this collection items, and we'll see that showing up in a little bit. So this is what we're going to be using to access our database, is this reference item-based collection. Now one thing nice about commenting this one out up here, item list, is now every time we use that here, it'll be highlighted as an error in some place where we have to change the code. So that's what we're going to do next, is go through and start changing that code for it. So now we've got this item collection here set up. So we're going to look at the on press button here, and we're going to use this code now to add the database, add the information to the database. So let's go through and look at that. So that should be our first button here, our add button widget. Here we're calling item list.add. We can't do that anymore because we don't have an item list. So instead, we're going to add it to our Firebase database. So again, we're going to use our item collection database and say .add. And then just like before, we're going to add a new name, or use the new name field. So again, we've got this text field here, and the controller is called the new item text field here. That's this. Let me come back. So that's all right. My phone went in standby. So that's this field up here, this text field, and the controller associated with it. So we can just use that controller name, new item text field dot text here. I'm going to need a semicolon after that. And then we also clear the database after, or clear that text field after we type something in. We add it and then we clear the field, so then we can type a new item in there. Now, eventually we're going to want to make this an async call, but I'm going to leave it as is for now, and then we'll come back to this in just a sec, or after we get the others. So let's just try this out. We can actually test out this database now and see if it will run. In order for that to work, I should comment out these other ones. Well, actually, let's just wait. Let's just do the whole thing at once, because what that would do is when we add the items, if I were to comment the other ones, I would see the items start up in my collection here. Now, a couple things to note in our collection. Our collection will be under a heading of items. And then when we add these strings here, where did we do that? Here we're adding a string. It will be named item name in the database. So we'll have to make sure when we refer to that, that's kind of like the field name of this item in the database. And really this should probably be stored up as a constant for that field name, but right now we're not doing that. Okay, so now we've done that. So the next thing we have to do, I'm going to skip over again this for, which is putting some async code around this. And then we're going to scroll down and here, and the next thing we see is our tile widget, and then inside that our item list widget. And this item list widget is a list view. So we're going to have to surround this list view with another widget, a stream builder widget here. Now sometimes when you want to surround one widget for a next one, you can, a shortcut that helps sometimes hit Alt Enter, and then you can say wrap in widget. And then you can just say, I need this stream builder widget. And it will put that widget around you, hit enter here, and add a child class for this. And for a lot of widgets that works fine, but for this one it doesn't quite work well because Stream Builder is a little more complicated. So here's our widget that we're going to add here. So there. Oops. Copy that again. See if I can get my copy and paste working correctly here. So in my list, my stream builder, I specify a builder here, and inside that I specify some parameters, and then I want to do a return, not a child of the next widget. So I have to do a return here because basically I'm defining a function here for the builder for this. Okay, so I have expanded, I have a child there, and that's my stream builder. And I have a builder underneath that, and that is going to return my list view that was originally here. And this is my list view here. Okay, then down here, let's see, I have my list view, and then that's inside a return. So I have to make sure I put a semicolon after that here, and then I should close out the bracket. No, this, yeah, to close out the bracket of the builder. This squiggly bracket up there should be closed out next. And then the parenthesis that should close out, let's see, this called a stream builder. Okay, so that should finish off my stream builder with this square squiggly bracket and parentheses here. Okay, so that's good. Now I still don't have my item length here, but I got, again, the stream builder set up okay here. Okay, let's look at how we're doing. So we've added that. Now for our item count, we're going to use this, our snapshot. So what this is doing, let's talk a little bit about this, is this is going out, it's creating what is called a snapshot. So when our stream builder goes out and tells, uses our database connection and goes to snapshots, and gets a snapshot of the data there. So that'll be all the documents here, and we'll return that as a stream. So we're given this snapshot here. And so that's a variable we'll be using now to refer to all the data that comes back from our Firestore database. So here, we don't want to do this anymore, which was our item length. We want to get the item count from snapshot.data.docs.length. So the snapshot has data in it, and the data has a number of documents, which is like records, and then we want the length is the number of records that are in our database for this. Okay, we've got that set up. So now we want to actually get the text for the item name and display that in the list tile. So up above here, where we have the list tile, here we're displaying that text item. We're going to change that to this. And let's talk a little bit about what that means. So again, I'm going to not do this one, which uses the item list, and instead I'll be using, this one. So before, we're given the position in our kind of array or stuff, and so if we want to get something in that position, again, we refer to our snapshot.data.docs, and docs is like an array or a list of records that we're getting from the database. So then we can specify the position, and then inside that, we could have other fields, and so this is our field called item name. And now why do we know that's the name? Is because when we wrote that to the database up here where we added it, we specified the item name as the field and then the value of this. So that name and this name have to be the same, and we'll see that stored in the database in just a little bit for it. Now right now this snapshot is highlighted as an error, and we'll have to add that up here. I'm going to do this next one also first before we add that as a parameter. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is on tap method we want to delete this record. So we're going to get rid of this list removal, and instead we're going to do these two lines. So the first thing we need to do is get the ID. Every record out there has an ID number. We have to get that. So we know the position we're at that we want to delete, so we just say snapshot.data.docs. And then again, that's our array of values, and then we go position, and then we go .id. And that's the unique ID that's created for each record for this. So once we have that item ID as a string, then we can just use that. So we can say item collections.doc item id.delete, and that'll delete that record. So a doc is again basically our array of or our list of records here, and we can delete the one here. Now I could actually have put this inside here, but I think it's a little easier to understand if we break these up into two parts here. Okay, the last thing is that the snapshot is this variable, just similar to position. The snapshot is known. So remember, we're down here in our list builder, and we put the stream builder around it, and we got a snapshot here. We got a variable snapshot. We used it, but then also when we're creating our child widget here, we need that snapshot. So we can add that here either before or after our position. We just make sure so, and then we do that here. So we can pass the snapshot up here. And this is one thing that's kind of helpful because I don't even know, well, I guess I do. We do know that this is the type of that snapshot. So we could include that up here. But again, I'm going to just let it do this dynamic typing here and set this up. So, okay, let's see. I've got an error here. It says I need a comma. I didn't put a comma here. Okay. So now hopefully I can check a Dart analysis, see if it says me any errors, and if not, I can try to run this again and see how it works. So let's just update this run. Okay, so now it's running here, and I can add some items here. So maybe I want some milk. Add that to my list. Maybe I want to get some bread. Add that to my list. Now I can look in Firestore, so I can go over to the web and look in Firestore here, and I should be able to see my records here. Maybe I have to refresh this. I see I'm getting some errors with some permissions here, so I can say I redid this and I want to redo this initial start of the app up here. I'm going to actually stop this and run it again from scratch. So hopefully now your app should be working. You should be able to add items and delete them from the list here. and it should store in Firebase. Now you should be able to go to your Firebase console, and inside your Firebase Firestore database, you should see this collection. You should see it being built here. But I'm having a conflict. I'm getting this read error. The problem is I think I started this project, this code with one Firebase project, and I deleted that project and created a new one for this recording, and it's not quite working correctly. But the data is being stored in Firebase here and stuff. So you should be able to look and see. Now, when you look in your Firestore database, you should see a collection called items, because that's what we called it. And underneath that, it should be unique items with unique IDs. And then every item should have just one field, an item name, and that should be the name of the item here that we're using. So that should finish up and get this working. Now let's jump back, and one thing is that there's a little bit of delay when we're adding items to this. When we click add items here, we type in some name, and our interface might hang just for a sec. Firebase is really fast, but it could just hang for a sec while we hit Apple, and then it updates everything. So a better way of doing that would be to add an async await call to this call to the add to the database. And so we can go up here where we're adding the item to the database. And when we're calling this, we could call await. So await is a keyword which will let us set up an asynchronous call. Well, we'll go out and do this and let the rest of the app keep running. But to stop our code here, waiting for this to be done, and then continue afterwards for this. So await has to be used in async function here. So we need to have an async added to this. And right now we have this inside a set state, and we can actually delete the set state and replace it. I think in your version you probably don't have this async here, but we want to do that. So let me just see if I can delete this, and let's see, this ties into there. I don't think we need this, and then we need a parenthesis to wrap up the elevated one, and I don't think we need this at all now. There, we just need to close that paren and then do a comma for to close off the on press, and then have our child. So in your assignment, you'll read a little bit about await. So if there's some call or some method that is going to hang or take a little while, you can stick an await ahead of that, and then your program will halt, and the rest of the app will keep going though here. And then but in order to do that to work, you need to surround that by an asynchronous call. So sometimes that means turning your app into an async, the function up here, and that's actually what we did up here. We created this into a function, and then sometimes you have to add a future here, saying this will return in the future. But in this case, we can just surround this this await by this async call instead of our set state call. So now if we run this, it should still work. Yeah, it should hang, not that you really saw it hanging at all here. So it'll add things and still update. So even though we took the set state up, it should still update for us here. Okay, so that wraps up this activity. Hope you enjoyed it.